Hello YouTubers, fellow tankers, and other gamers. I am Shrine King, and this is King's Court. Today I'm actually going to be covering Aslains. It's a mod pack that's used for World of Tanks. It's actually one of the top notch of the mod packs, and also includes an extensive amount of modifications that more so for like quality of life, and some are actually things that can help you perform a little better just based on having some of the information. So to get started, I'm also kind of making this for like my clan to help them with certain configurations. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get into where you got to get the mods, where you can consider as trusted, right? Then how do you go about doing the installation itself, and what kind of considerations you want to put in place. So like some examples would be like if you have a lower end computer, you want to probably turn off a lot of the modifications to help get it to a point of making system performance not be heavily impacted. So to start, you can actually just do a Google search of WOT mods, which you'll see here. This should pull up this website right here, and you're specifically looking for this one where it's the HTTPS. So by that it means it's secure. At least the link is that's the whole point of that. That's saying that it's a secure site. And then you're looking for wargamingmods.net, right? So I'm going to click on here, and then it'll bring up the site. Now this is just the mod hub, which you're going to see that there are a lot of modifications here, and these are packages, by the way. So all of them have different kind of things. Some of them, for example, right here is just like a different skin to make the tank look cooler, or different type of model of it based on what year or something, stuff like that. So in this case, the modifications that or mod pack I'm going into is Aslains. And you'll see here it'll tell you Aslains World Tank Mod Pack created by Aslain, and it'll say you can download the mod, and it'll say which version. So when you go to download the mod, it's telling you, hey, it's made by other people, not necessarily Wargaming. They are on the feature portal and undergo basic checks and preliminary tests. We do not bear any responsibility regarding their performance, quality, and safety. So this is the aspect of knowing that, hey, look, these are saying yes, these are stuff that they've allowed over into the hub. They do review them themselves, but it's not necessarily to say that everything is according or built into play well with the game. So that means some things can cause glitches and all sorts of stuff, right? So we're going to say got it. You're going to see that it's going to download. Now I'm using Google, so you'll see here it brings like my downloads down here, and I'm going to say keep. It'll just go through and it takes care of the download. Now if you are using Google, you will have a downloads folder like this, and you'll see I've downloaded quite a few, and in this case I actually have two because I already had it. You'll actually kick that off. Windows will and double click on it, right? It'll start the installer, and then Windows will actually prompt you saying, hey, we noticed that this is an executable file that's not made by Windows. Are you sure you want to execute this? Right, saying that, hey, there's a safety concern there with any type of thing that you actually go to do that. That's exactly what Windows will say. So in this case, you would actually say yes, you do want to do it, and then it'll actually start the installer and shows this kind of window, right? So before that, it'll actually give you a preview thing. So I'm going to close out of this and actually show you. Let's see, setup is not complete. If you use another program, will not be installed. Yes, I'm going to exit. So, for example, like we downloaded this, I'm going to actually just kick it off here and show you what it does, right? So here, it's telling you, hey, are you sure? Unknown publisher, right? We're not sure if that's safe, right? We're going to say yes, and then it comes up with this part right here. So you guys select a language, and I'm going to say English. You can pick whatever language suits you. And then it'll take a little bit because it's going to do like an initialization of this mod pack for the install. And I'm going to go ahead and minimize my folder there. And then this is the window that you'll get. So in here, you want to actually put on the show preview window, and then you're going to say next. And then this is just telling you what's been going on, what you're doing, like what's going forward with your install, how you go about bug reports, how to go about your updates, what like is considered for the XVM's statistics. So if you see experience problems such as missing stats, bad token, please follow this procedure, right? So they're saying turn off your game client, go to the modxvm.com en and click sign in, right? And then you say deactivate stats, activate stats, and I'll walk through this part here, at least from the XVM site. So I'll walk through that part as well. So then he goes into his changelog, which is actually good development practice. So he's telling you what recently came out in this newer version. Typically what happens is a new version of Wargaming, World of Tanks will come out, and they have to do like small modifications basically to make sure that it's still working for that version. But then they also do a couple other stuff that they worked on, such as like, hey, they fixed mod pack markings, they added in some updated camouflage icons, which and again, this is most like a lot of all that's just like cosmetic kind of stuff, so it's just quality of life. In my case, I have a different folder where I install too. In your case, like if you're doing a C drive, like you typically do C drive for all your computer stuff, that's fine. If you do have other drives, maybe specifically like the game drive, I would recommend that you get it over to your game drive for it. But it's going to be looking for wherever you installed World of Tanks. So that's what you're trying to get to. Now, in this case, you'll see mine comes up with a custom installation. So one thing to note is once you've set this up, afterwards, you shouldn't have to change it very often. It actually saves them, so every time you get the updates and you go to click off this installer, it'll actually save the settings. So like all of these settings are my settings of what I originally had. So I'm going to go through these as like what the features are, right? What they're doing for you, and then I'm going to talk about whether or not you want it on if you're talking about a low-end PC or just let's say a higher-end PC. So over target markers, I highly recommend. This actually is very helpful, and it's not it doesn't really take a large impact to you even with the lower end PC. So for example, all it's talking about is, and you'll see these images here, right? So it's saying like, hey, having the name of the tank, this health bar, right, a symbol for the tank, even other icons such as like this star where you see that's blue, that's actually talking about their XVM rating. Now, what I will say is the XVM ratings, or XVM, which is talking about like Win 8 ratings or even player ratings, those things, it actually has to touch out to a database and bring it back over. So if you actually are on a low-end PC, you do not want to have the XVM stuff. So what that would be is, you'll see on here I have like, hey, for first line, so you'll see I do first line over HP bar. So it's saying right above this HP bar, what do you want to see here? And I said first line, I want vehicle name. So it's showing that. Now you'll see I did star marker for premium, and that like obviously I just clicked on it, but any of these features you can click on, and if they actually had something to show, it'll bring up in this preview window. That's actually why initially when we kicked this off, I made sure to check that box so that you can see this stuff. So you see this little gold star here, that'll let you know that it's a premium vehicle. Now, if you don't care if it's a premium vehicle and you're on a lower end PC, I would actually turn that off. No reason to bother with it. Colored by ally and enemy. So what this means is it'll show green and it'll show red, right? You do want that. The second line over the HP bar, right, I put player name. I do recommend that, right? And again, if you're trying to go into like these, so you'll see like these graphical stats, you want to stay away from those if you are on a lower end PC. And again, the reason being is it's going to be reaching out to a server to try to grab this information on every load as you're coming in. So if you're on a hard drive, you probably, like a normal hard drive, you probably don't want to do that. If you're solid state though, that's actually not that bad. And again, like if you're a higher end PC, and that's still not bad. But player name is perfectly fine because that's actually always loaded no matter what. So you don't get out, like there's no way out of that. Left side of the HP bar, I do the Roman numeral tiers. So you'll see you can do also Arab. What that is saying is this is the tier of the tank. It is useful to know the tier of the tank, especially like if you're not necessarily familiar with tanks. right offhand. So this gives you a visual indicator. So you're like, yeah, you know what, I'm in a tier 7 and I see that there's a tier 9. So you want to be a little more careful when trying to fight the tier 9 because they're going to be a lot more powerful than your tank. Right side of the HP bar, I do the tank win ratio. This tells me that that player in that tank, what their win rate is, and that kind of helps me understand where they stand as players in the tank. So the thing to bear in mind, right, is win rate is not a direct correlation to your performance. So because there are 14 other players for your side and 15 on the other side that kind of all coincide on how that battle will go, win rate will not be something that you can be like, oh, well, you see that yellow or green, or red, right? If it's red, they're obviously horrible. Honestly, that's not really true. It might just be that they're like unlucky, right? Like a T10 is actually a really good tank, and it might be just really really poor. It might also be like their first fight in it or second fight in it. I'm sorry. That'll show that. So my general rule of thumb is if you see it at 40% or less, that's kind of a bad sign. If you see around like 44, 45% to up to about 50%, that's actually pretty typical. If you're seeing higher percentage, it usually means either they're decent or they are playing typically with platoons that are pretty dominant, right? So like they're usually going to play really high, well, in the tank, right? It's based on the tank. So it that's kind of where I would rate that. And because this actually pulls from your personal ratings and stuff like that, so this goes again to the database. If you are in a low-end machine, I highly recommend turning this part off. If you really wanted like HP percentages, you can do that. Even the mark of excellence, I would keep that off because it's still got to reach that from the server side of things. So moving on to rating marker icon. This is another one that's pulling information from XVM, or even your personal rating, right, from the game. So it's saying, hey, I got to pull all this extra information about the player to even be able to load up what it's going to do. So if you're on a low-end machine, again, I would turn this off. You can pick out, like, if you want a square, you want it to be like right on the bar, separated from the bar, you want it to be a star, you want it to be a dot. It's whatever you want. Like in my case, I do the star, and then yeah. So I mean, it is good to have. Low HP mark below 25%, absolutely. You're going to want that. It doesn't matter if you have high-end or low-end machine. OTM class icons, this is typical icons, so I would keep that. OTM players positioning in the beginning of the battle. All right, so this is saying default. So this is for Clan Wars, right? So you'll see, hey, this is if we're saying bottom, where you'll see underneath. So if these were 113s, it's like up here. I actually prefer the default where it's higher. So this is more for if you are in Clan Wars. So if you are part of my clan, this is a setting that we're kind of looking for. You want this to be able to help with your calls. So instead of having to try out or call out by 113 at 1767 hit points, you're just going to say, hey, number 12, right? Shoot number 12. And again, this part, it doesn't matter if you're on low end or high end machine. It is very simplistic based on it basically just shows you the number and the order of where they were on the right side of their like team layout, which I'll show that part as well of where that's coming from. Also note, you can use it outside of Clan Wars. You can say, hey, I just want to use it all the time, or you could. I would keep it checked though to keep it for Clan Wars. Usually in a platoon, there's no real point. You're kind of always together. It's easier to communicate because you know who you're talking to and stuff like that. Style floating damage text. I personally like the white text with colored outlines. If you are on a lower end machine, I would probably not check this one, right? Because it is going to overlay the ones that are already there. So you just want to keep the ones that are coming from the game instead. So you would uncheck this box. Floating markers of destroyed vehicles. This I enjoy. I like it. There's different ways to go about it, right? So you can do like skull and bones. They got like different kinds. You'll see that some of them are pretty cool. I do like the fancy one for the little tank with wings. But again, this is an extra feature. not really necessary. If you have a low-end machine, I would turn it off. Vehicle HP. Definitely you want current over max, right? So you always want to know what they're at and what was their maximum. And the reason being is, for example, if this Matilda took, let's say, 40 damages at 300, and I know my average damage is 300, I know he's one-shot capable, right? If I see that he's at 300 and I only do 100 damage, I know it's going to take me 3 shots to probably break him down, which means it's not one of those cases I can just run out, right? When you see percentages, it's just really difficult to do the conversions over in your head and be like, oh, I remember, yeah, he's got 340 and he's lost 10%, which puts him at, 302 or 308, right? It's like, no. I don't need to bother with that. Just look at the straight numbers. The other thing that you could do if you really prefer is you can just say what's the current, right? Because if you don't really care about what's maximum health, you can always just look at what's current. Totally up to you on what you choose for that. Stock turret marker. I enjoy this because it helps me know when people are kind of just starting their tank, but unnecessary. So if you are a low-end machine, you don't need it. If you don't really care about knowing if they have stock or not, you don't need it. Markers for spotted and flipped tanks. Right, so this gives you like a different symbol for a light bulb to let you know that, hey, they were spotted, but then if it's a different color, it's actually saying that they're flipped. I like it, but it's not necessary. So again, if you are low end, don't bother. If it's not something you really care about, again, don't bother. The strong intensity or the shadow intensity behind OTM, I do weak shadow. You'll see here this is strong shadow, so it's saying is this black shadow around the names. Personally, I like to be able to kind of see through it. If it's dark, it kind of blocks certain things when you're trying to look at stuff, so definitely recommend the weak shadow. And that part is okay. Right? It's a small overlay. Should not impact you very heavily when it comes to your PC performance. Now, here's where things kind of get a little fun or interesting, right? So you got panels in Windows in battle. Now, for this stuff, let me show you, like, so we're saying I want panels by Aslains and I want it to be this simple. Now, if I were to go like Quickie Baby, you'll see that he's got like his own, right? This is like a package set. So there's like solo, right? And you'll see in here, it's actually showing a bunch of different statistics, right? This is the stuff, if you are on a low-end machine, you really don't need. You just don't. This data will actually increase load times if you have a good PC. It doesn't really impact you at all, so that's totally fine. And as you saw, like I had my own setup that I was really going for. I actually personally like the one that's battle loading from XVM Team. But again, like I said, if you are running a low-end machine, you will actually turn this off. Don't even bother doing the check on it, okay? So everything in here is going to be under the impression that you are on a decent machine, okay? So then I'll explain what I like personally. So I like this one from the XVM Team. So you'll see that it says how many battles they had, what's their rating, right? What's the win percentage that they have, and I actually go for one that will be a little more, like I actually have when I do the tab, I want it to be the advanced, right? So like you'll see here's the XVM, here's the XVM, here's the advanced. So the advanced is a little different. So what this is saying is what is the average tier that the player plays, right? So it tells you like, are they on the higher cusp of play, so they're working more heavily on 8s, 9s, and 10s, or are they on the lower end? Typically what you're going to see is people on 5 and 6, and that's perfectly fine, right, because they're going through it. The next stat is actually how many games have they played as a player, right? So here, if I see that someone's only played like 3,000 matches and they're actually like tier 8, I know that might be the only tier 8 they really have, right? So you just want to bear that in mind. And then you have their rating, right? So say like whether or not they're yellow, green, all that kind of stuff. Honestly, if they're orange, that's really where the average is, guys. If they're yellow, they're actually a decent player. If they're green, that actually means they're getting a little higher on the cusp of good player. What you want to be careful about is if you see like greens, blues, and purples, they will be going for performance, right? So it just does mean yes they perform, but it also means they're going for performance. So a lot of times they don't make self-sacrifices. They know enough about the game to keep damage out there, so they will actually more or less pull back and try to keep their gun alive and on the field so that they can keep pumping out that damage and hopefully bring in the win, right? So that those are things to bear in mind when you're reading like the map. So the other part here is their overall win percentage, and they're kind of like I said, this overall is not something I would really rate someone by, but if I saw like a lot of these, I would be like, okay, these are all fine. These are okay players. But I do see cases where it's like people are at like 38% or 32%. To be that low, honestly, that's botting, right? It's someone sitting there not even shooting, basically. When you see these dashes here, that means that they've not registered enough battles to really even count. And these stats right here, these three stats here, are actually based on the tank they're in. So it'll say how many battles they fought. So like this guy's fought over 100 battles. When you see like this, that's over 300, right? 400. And 0 means that they haven't even reached 100 battles. The reason being is you can't really judge a player for their tank performance until they have roughly about 100 fights in it. Because their overall performance starting out can sway widely just based on whatever teams or what's going on with the teams and stuff like that. So win percentage, that's based on the tank. So that's where you'll see here, I see 39%. That's bad, right? It's telling me that this guy's probably a bot or he just really does not know what he's doing. And then this is average kills in the tank. So if in this, I kind of hope to see a 1. That tells me if the player's doing pretty good. They seem to always be able to dish out their like damage equal to, or at least help out the team in a way because they're at least killing someone on that match. Rarely do I ever see a lot higher than 1, right? So like this 2.1, that's usually always artillery, right? Because they're able to support and knock out people in places that others cannot. So I like that for the tab, and that way, like if you're just kind of looking or getting a focus of like what's going on with your team and what you should be kind of planning from, this is helpful. Remove rank badge icons, remove country flags, remove XVM. I do all of that because it's just extra stuff that you don't really need. What it would do is it shows like these little icons around, and I can't remember if it's either on the right side or the left side on the panel, but it's really unnecessary. So I leave those checked to get rid of those. Now on the player panel, I actually like kind of a condensed panel. This is where I'm doing short for player name, so it'll tell me who the person is. I do have these icons so that I'll see, hey, it's the KV2 to talk to. I like it also because it color codes and indicates. And then you'll see here this is like the kills that the player has, and then it still uses the XVM coloring. So this is like by their player rating, I believe, is what mine goes off of. So you'll see that it's just coloring them for their overall count. So I do recommend medium short, and you'll see you can do like long and all that kind of stuff, but a lot of times I'm not too concerned about their name. If I want to know the full name, I just tab. So you hold tab and that goes to the advanced and it'll show you. So the large panel, this is when you're tabbing. Yeah, both overall and individual tank stats. So this is part I'm talking about where it has all those different stats, right? And then you'll see you can have start mode. What this is saying is when you're starting a match, what tab do you want it to be on, right? So like, do you want it to be short? Do you want it to be medium? Medium 2? Do you want it to be medium large? So the difference between medium and medium 2 is you'll see like one is full name basically, the other one is one is the player name, one's the tank name. So in this part, right, if you say, hey, I'm just going with like this is my medium, this is, and then you'll see it says medium default, right? And then here's the large, and then my start mode, I actually want to say I want to go with the medium, right? I want it to go just with my medium with the player name to match up. Background transparency, I go with full, right? Because I don't really care about having the background behind it. I just don't feel it's necessary. You can do show HP bars. So like here's where, hey, under alt, like if I do left alt, it'll show the HP bars from this part. I find this to be kind of useful, right? But it's not really necessary because you can see people's health on the field anyway. And then the markers here. So this part I do find really nice. Again, if well, actually, so like I said, you would turn all of this off if you have low performance, because this is actually pulling information from XVM. It's actually checking to see do they have XVM, and it'll show for each player that does, right? So that helps you know who would be or has stuff that you have, such as this Aslains mod. And then, hide icons for not spotted vehicles or spotted vehicles, and it's actually like this, right? So it's saying, hey, if they're not spotted, right, I would hide the icon, right? Or I could say, hey, if you want to hide the icon once they have been spotted, but that's kind of reverse to me. I wouldn't do that personally. Show more visible frags, right? So this is saying enhance these numbers so that it's easier to see. Definitely recommend that. Show clan icons to the player. Honestly, yeah, you don't really need that. I don't think it's really important. I didn't even know I actually had it on. Show the client flags. I actually like this, to be honest, because it helps me understand where people are from. So if I see that a good chunk of my team seems to be from South America, it means I know communication is going to be difficult, right? So if I'm trying, like, there's really no point in me trying to talk to them or chat them for any direction, because they won't. Well, maybe they understand English, but maybe they don't, right? And that's one of the things I'm finding to be kind of hard for me. You see ignore flags selected by users on the XVM website. That I don't really worry about. I'd rather just see the client flags. So now we're up to the minimap. I do find the minimap to be extremely important, so I do recommend everybody use the minimap mods on here. Most of them are already in the game, so it's not too much of a difference. So you'll see having the inner circle telling you within 50 meters, showing the maximum detection range, right, which is the yellow. Show the 564 meter maximum drawing, so the farthest that you can see is the red. You'll see in this one they're showing a box. You'll actually get a circle, right? And you want it to be bold lined so that way it's easier to see. Show dynamic view range circle, blue. So what this is saying is you're currently here, and then once, like let's say for example I pop up binocs, it would actually push it out. That's saying dynamic. That means it can change. Show view range circle while in motion, navy blue. So that's saying here's this one in difference to the other one, right? So it's saying show where your view range is, and then like where your maximum can go. Show range circle for machine gun and SPG, thin red. Yeah, that one doesn't make any sense. Yeah, you don't need that. Yeah, that's funny. Sorry, that's a weird one. I didn't know that was there. So then we're talking about lines, right? So the lines here show vehicle direction line, long and thin and green, or you can do short and strong white line. So you'll see this is saying like, hey, where is your vehicle going? What direction are you going? So you'll see here, this is this thin white one right here. So there's a little green one here. I actually like the green one, but again, that's totally up to you. If you're not really worried about it because of the fact that you actually have this little arrow that tells you kind of the direction of your tank, totally up to you, right? Whatever you want. Show camera direction. This is actually really useful. So this is something that they also have in the game, right? But this one actually makes it turquoise, so it's a little easier to see. You can do yellow, right? You can do white, but I do recommend the turquoise. It is the easiest to see, to me, right? Again, but if you're colorblind, that you have other options. So this definitely is helpful. It helps you kind of pick out, so like even when things are outside drawing distance, you might be able to kind of figure out where to blind fire to, just based on knowing the camera line direction and match it up. Show gun traverse lines. This one I also really enjoy and like. So you'll see here it's saying, hey, based on where your gun can move, this is really good, especially for like artillery or tank destroyer players. So if you don't have a turret that's what it's telling you. Is like, hey, if you move so far, your tank has to move, right? So if I started aiming over to this way, my tank has to turn to allow me to aim there. Now, labels, this part, you want show icons for destroyed tanks, so you do want to know where like tanks were dying at. Show HP circles. This one to me is huge, right? Knowing the health on the minimap is really, really good for team play, right? So in here you'll see like, hey, this E4 is actually getting close to dead. One thing to note is it is based on radio. So if I was like all the way past where the T62A is and this IS-7, I would see only the last indication of what my radio told me, like the communication was. So I would not know what his actual health is until I start coming closer to get within radio range. Now, they have it where you can turn on show players' names, allies, enemies, stuff like that. I don't find that really necessary. It's nice just knowing the tanks and then what their health is at. In my case, though, I do have like clan stuff going on. So if you are doing clan stuff, it is probably helpful. Not so much, I would say, as a typical player. It's more for the caller, right? So being able to see on the map who is particularly you're trying to talk to is very helpful. And then you can do the player name color by rating, right? That part I don't like. That's up to you. I can see it being useful, especially if you're trying to know, let's say which particular players on the field are in a good spot, so that way you know can it be a strong line or a weaker line. And the same thing even in random battles. Like, do you notice a lot of the reds are going into a particular direction, kind of like a little lemming rush, or and then maybe hang out with your better players or at least better scoring players, right? So they'll be like green and yellows and stuff like that. So totally up to you. I don't think it's necessary, but again, like if you're a caller, I would say having the allies show up is probably helpful. Show vehicle name. You got full. You can do short. I definitely still recommend that. It's nice to know what the vehicle is, besides just, hey, it's an SPG or something like that. The alternative minimap mode. This is when Alt is pressed. So you'll see here we can do, hey, show vehicle tiers by Roman numeral, ARAM numbers, show player rating on the minimap. You can do show the name on the minimap. You can show player name by color and rating on the minimap. So this is actually the one where I actually have it here, and it's so that when I hit Alt, I can actually say, okay, let me see now the other options, and then show HP circles, even when I'm doing this one, right? So that's what that's saying, is when in this alternate mode, you could actually say I don't want to see the circles, but I still keep them. Icon scales, I actually like default is the 1, right? Which I actually won't show you, but I put mine to 1.1. It just makes the icons a little bit bigger. It's easier to see. So it depends. So if you're having trouble seeing some stuff, or like maybe reading some of the words and stuff like that, I would recommend increasing your icon scale a little bit. Minimap zoom. So this is when you are hitting, I think, control, right? The minimap will blow up a bit. Actually, yeah, there it tells you. You can actually tell it to be right control, caps lock, whatever you want, okay? But when that happens, you want to choose the location. So you'll see here it's bottom right corner. I could also have it where it's going to show up centered right in the middle of the screen. I don't recommend that, because if you do that, right, it makes it to where it's hard to do stuff while you're, doing things, such as like maybe shooting somebody. Whereas the other one, you can be shooting people and still see the map and then eventually go ping over. Artillery sight on the minimap. This is really kind of totally up to you. So you'll see here, once I selected this part, it actually shows you the different ones here. I personally like this 8 one, right, because it gives me this circle and it gives me this little indicator. It actually really helps line up on the minimap. So what it's saying is on the minimap, when you're looking somewhere, right, it will actually show you where the center of your shot is on the minimap. So that way, if you're like, hey, I'm actually trying to figure out where this guy last was, then that's where that becomes helpful. So like if you know some like scout has been sitting in the same place forever, you can actually try to blind fire him by that. Now, all things said, again, low end, from this point on, honestly, you would probably stick to everything that's just the game, right? So you would actually turn off all of these, and then just stick with the stuff that's already embedded in the game, right? Because all of these kind of rewrites some of the stuff, or goes off of a different model, so that would make it to where it would be a little bit stranger, right? Or I'm sorry, a little bit harder on the machine. So that said, some of this stuff will not be as heavy impact. So if you have a low-end machine and you're like, man, I still would really like to see some of these things, bear in mind, you could test it out, right? You can try it out by turning on some of these, and then if it doesn't really work, you just redo the install and turn that part off. Because like I said, when you go to do the install, it will actually save it. So in this case, I'm going to go over this as if we have a decent PC, or we are making that choice, and then what would be the ones that I would recommend. So you'll see here you can do the version number 1 where it's showing all of this, right? And then you'll see that they have other options, right? So they have like XVM options, they have someone else's options, same thing, right? Everyone has different options on what they wanted. I actually really do like the version 1, so I do recommend using the version 1, but it's totally up to you. It has different indicators for what this was, like whether it was splash, whether it was a RAM, or just a direct hit kind of stuff, right? And then you have the damage log where you can do movable with left control mouse. So like, here's the damage log here, where you're taking hits and stuff like that. You can choose any one of these, right? You can say hide central feedback, right? I actually just like the one from XVM. Efficiency counters. So I really do enjoy having it right over this damage panel. So it tells me like how much damage I did, how much assistance I got, how much I blocked, stuff like that. Now, you could have it all the way up here, where then you have like your other this hit log part, right? So saying how many hits did you get, you'll see start matching up to this damage here, so you'll see all those hits. Personally, I just like it right here because I'm usually looking here for what's going on, like how well am I doing, or whether I have things to be concerned about. So how much hit points do I have, what's been damaged, how much damage have I done, do I need to spot any more people, that kind of stuff. And of course that's more for missions anyway. Color scheme, totally up to you. Blue, green versus violet, right, or green versus red. I typically just go with the green versus red. If you are looking at stats, I do highly recommend that you stick to the 10 colors by Watt Labs. A lot of people like going to the 6, so you'll see this is by Team XVM, where they have a better blue color. And you can see the difference there. It's like, okay, that was kind of greenish, right? Now you have blue. This is a broader scale, which means more people fit into these grades, so you don't really know the difference necessarily. So again, you'll see here they're like, this is outdated, right? So you wouldn't really use that. I like it with the different red colors, right? So we're saying, hey, bad, there's like bad and very bad, right? And this is kind of actually a really good example of what I'm talking about. You have like very bad, bad, below average, average, and like I said, most people are actually in here. And then you have average, above average, good, very good, great, unicom, super unicom, right? So like literally the top of the top. Now if I were to go back to this one, you'll see here it's just very bad, bad, normal, good, very good, unicom, right? So it don't really break out to like, is it good or very good, or normal or better than normal, right? So you'll see even Quickie Baby has a little bit different here, right? So ultra bad, very bad, bad. Well, and that's actually the average. So normal, good, very good. So you see, he kind of took out yellow. It's more like orange at this point, like lighter orange. So yeah, I definitely recommend, like, you can even stick to the original. I like it with the different colors where you have the brighter red. It's easier to see. Now 6 cents, right, is already built into the game. You don't necessarily have to do anything with it. I like it for my own personal criteria. So this is to say, hey, now one thing I will say is, even if you are going to stick to the game, check this 6 cents icon for 10 seconds. This actually helps you know the longest you can be spotted. Now that's not to say that when you're lit that you will be lit this long. That is literally the longest you can possibly be lit. So when you're getting like higher tiers and stuff like that, there's a chance that people are marking you and that they have all these different skills. That's when that really comes into play. So 10 seconds is probably your better rule of thumb when you're looking at like tier 8, 9, and 10, but not necessarily so when you're at like tier 3, 4, and 5. But having this checked will leave the icon up for that time, so definitely recommend that. And you'll see here I chose custom icons, and you can go into like any of these, right? You can say, hey, I want the Ice Star, I want the Metal Gear, John Cleese, like, and they make all sorts of things, right? I actually like the minion one. I do it because I also use the minion sound. It kind of drives people nuts, but I personally enjoy it. It makes me feel a little better inside. So I got minions, and then that's the icon. So this is all the icon, and then you actually have the sound, right? So for example, if I pick this, it's supposed to play the sound. Oh, you know what? I actually have my volume all the way down. So here, I'll try it again. I see. So there's Sauron, right? But then here's minions. Right? Every time I always have a little grin for this. Now, main reason why I do that is, one, it is very apparent. So it is very alarming, which is actually what you're looking for, right? Another one that was really good is the Metal Gear sound, right? Because it comes up. Now, what I find is the lower tones, like Predator, like, yeah, okay, that's not really going to stand out to me to where I'm like, oh man, I need to do something because I'm spotted, right? So having something that's pretty high pitched or even like remotely annoying is really good, which minion sound is perfect for it. Then we have like hanger stuff. Now all of this, it's cosmetic, quality of life kind of thing. So like hide the premium shop button, hide general chat. I actually do enjoy, I'm happy to hide general chat. But you see, I didn't hide premium shop. I don't hide counter on the system channel. I don't hide promotional premium vehicles, like the one that's sitting in the background. A lot of that stuff doesn't really matter. You don't even have to bother with any of the locks or anything like that, so I wouldn't really worry too much about that. One thing I would recommend, now bear in mind, this will make your loads take a little longer, because what it does is it basically unequips, re-equips stuff to your tanks. So, for example, binocs you have on your tank and it's easily exchangeable, right? You can just take them, demount them for free, and then put them back on another tank. Because of that, right, theoretically what you'd want to do is as soon as your tank got out of combat, you would take the binocs off, right? And that way you have them available for whatever tank you're about to go into. So to handle this, I do equip auto return, right? Now, crew auto return is a feature that's already in the game, so you don't necessarily have to click this one at all, right? I've done that. I enjoy it because you actually have I don't have to click on the button. I know I just want it immediately when I pick that tank, bring my crew back into it. So I definitely recommend those two. Hanger clock, that's entirely up to you. You'll see here, it's talk about in here. Do you want to see a time? I enjoy it. I like having it, and it's in the game technically, so you don't really have to worry about it really being too much of a problem. And then carousel, I do too, but you can see you can go 4 or 5. You can get like all sorts of crazy just to make sure you can find your tanks, which I also wonder sometimes if you really can find all your tanks when you have 5. But I do recommend 2. It does make it a little bit easier. And then keep the scale, honestly, at 1, right? Unless if you're having real trouble reading the name of the tank or something like that, then I would enlarge it. But other than that, you shouldn't have to worry about it. Show advanced info. I enjoy having battle tiers, mastery rank, mark of excellence, win rate, played battles, average damage, and win rate expected in the tank. So to cover that, what you'll see here is this is the mastery rank, right? It'll tell you the percentage of your mark of excellence. So this is say that they haven't even put anything towards it, but this one, they're at 44.25. So as they fight in the tank, it'll continue to go higher, hopefully, but it can also come down. So that's where you're looking for 65%, right, for the first mark, 85% for the second mark, and 95% for the third. Now, here's where things get a little bit confusing. So a lot of people look at the percentage and they think that's your win rate, and that's actually not. So this mark here, that it looks like an accuracy, right? So like a crosshair. That's actually your win rate. So they're saying they have a 54% win rate. That's the amount of battles fought in the tank. This is their current average damage, and this is the Win 8 expected damage in the tank. So this is saying that's average for people. This is currently where you're at, right? So that kind of lets you know, are you doing really well in the tank or not? If you want to choose small carousel, it's entirely up to you, but you can see I just leave all that off. It's not really necessary. Other XVM settings. So again, if you have low performance, you don't want any of this. But the ones that I do find that are kind of nice to have is to show the team win 8 chance. So I pick the team win 8 team WN8 position number 2. So it puts it up here. Because you can choose like number 1, it's all the way up there, or it's all like under here. I actually really just like it right there, so I can see like here's my statistics for how like the performance of my machine. You know, what's my frames, what kind of ping am I getting, and then if I have server connectivity or not. So just so you know, if you see that red dot come, like if a red dot comes through, that means you lost connectivity to their server for a minute or for a second. And then the other part there is I don't care about all like, oh, here's the total win 8 numbers and all that stuff. It's just the win percent chance. So that's it. I just go with win percent only. And the aspect there, just bear in mind, all it's saying is what is their ratings. Take all those numbers, stack it against the other side based on the total, right? So it says take your side, their side, come up with a total, take your number, divide it by that total, and it tells you your percentage. So this does not tell you that you can win or lose. It's saying just by people's ratings, what would be the chance, right? That's it. That's all that means. It cannot account for, hey, is someone drunk? You know, did someone have a really bad day? Are they already tilted? Right? There's all sorts of things that can impact that. Or maybe it's not even the player. Maybe it's their kid, right, is playing. So bear that all in mind. Everything else, I mean, on there you'll see I kind of turn all that off. Battle hints, I actually hide these. These are I always found kind of annoying. So this was like the stuff where they're like, hit G to go into the, you know, other artillery mode, and don't forget you can hit N to see the personal missions. Like, I don't need that anymore, right? I've seen it plenty of times. I know it. I just don't need it. So I actually hide those. Show repair timers on damaged panel, right? So this is this. I like it because it actually stands out a little better than the original one, but you don't necessarily have to have it because I'm pretty sure it still already does that. Favorite server, I do that. That way it remembers the server that I typically log into, so that way it's not trying to just push me to the other server when it wants to. Colorized chat in battle is actually really useful, right? So knowing, hey, who's saying reload, who's got other stuff that they're trying to say. And you can see that you can do the XVM icons as well, but I mean that's just an add-on. It's not really needed. Now, the gun reload sound, there's all sorts. I actually really like the up 2. So that's the sound, right? Up 1 was like that.
Saber up!
And you like sab up, and you like click, bell. This is just telling you, that gives you an audible for, hey, you are reloaded. So I just like the up version 2. And then I want the sounds, but if you are not really worried about it, you can turn off the sounds. It's totally and entirely up to you. Now, here's where things kind of get a little interesting. So you see these contour designs, right? And I'm going to go, you won't show me. Yeah, that sucks. Now, here's the part 2 for those that with the lower performance machines. Again, if you are not looking to use XVM, don't do this. Right, so this is saying check if you're installing XVM. I'm totally for XVM and using it. It's perfectly fine. I have a good machine, so I'm not worried about it for like my load ups. For non-XVM, right, you can say if you're not installing, just check this one, right? So it's saying, hey, yeah, I do want the contour icons, but I'm not using the XVM. Now, here's Aslains icons, right? So I'm gonna say, yeah, I want contour, but I'm gonna use Aslains, and you'll see there's all these different kinds, right? I actually really liked these. Now you'll see they even have colorblind, right? So they have 3D and they have, you know, just typical contour. I like the 3D, but I like it with Roman tier, right? So this is the one that I pick. 3D icons with Roman tiers. And there you go. This is what it's actually telling you is, hey, I'm going to use these images. And you'll see that they had all different kinds, right? You can go to Blitz, Style, Oh, there's all sorts of other ones, right? And the same thing, like all these guys have different ones that they do, right? But I personally just like the 3D icons with Roman tiers. And you'll see that it goes all the way down and gets into, and you can say, hey, I just want to use the originals. That's up to you. The PMod, this is saying like what kind of zoom options do you want in sniper mode. So like I do the 2, 4, 8, 16, 24, 30. If you are a lower end machine, I actually recommend that you go to like 2, 4, 8, 16, right? Getting these higher outs, it actually will basically zoom out to a point you actually have to be able to see more video rendering, and that will actually slow down your machine a bit, so you don't want to really do that. Zoom out in arcade mode, honestly, I struggle with this sometimes on what I would really want. If you are on a low-end machine, I highly recommend that you kind of stick to maybe like 100 or 60. I would test it out and see how it goes. So what this is when you're not in sniper mode, right? That's the arcade mode. You can scroll out farther from your vehicle. Now usually they let you kind of get a little bit behind your vehicle, and that way you can kind of see around you. Being able to see 300 meters out, I can actually see an entire area, and I'll try to show that in the video. So for this video, it might take a little while because I got to load the World of Tanks for it, and I'm not sure how this recording will work for that either, so we'll have to see. Scroll sensitivity in arcade view, I do low, right? I don't want it to like go crazy, so that's where if I'm trying to zoom out, I don't want it to go like super far out really quick, right? I actually want to be able to come out and then kind of come back in. Usually if you have a decent mouse, the scrolling is actually pretty quick, so you don't have to worry too much about it. Default zoom settings, right? So this is saying how far out do you, like how far zoom do you want to be when you go to zoom in? I like times 6 personally. So you'll see like in theirs they had 2, 4, 8, right? You'll see I automatically go to 6, which is not one of them. So I'm already in the middle here, and then I go like down or up if I need to. I think the actual in-game is like times 2 or times 4 is where you start. But so if you were looking for the normal one, it's just 2 and 4. And then bear in mind this is saying, hey, if you uncheck this, right, it just remembers the last zoom, and that's actually that is Wargaming's model, right? So if I was zoomed all the way in, the next time I go to zoom, it'll be same thing. You can disable the gun shake effect. Now again, if you're having a little bit poorer performance on your machine, these actually might help you, right? So to disable the gun shake effect will actually make it to where your screen's not going to shake, so it tells it it doesn't have to do that. That actually should help some of your performance. Disabling stuff like this and enable free camera, like all this stuff, I don't think you really need. This part, the armor penetration indicator, this has actually been marked as illegal, so do not use this. What it's saying is when you point at a tank, it's going to tell you what's the millimeter of that armor, what is your penetration, and if it's greater, that's going to tell you it's green. The idea here is it's supposed to tell you is it close to what your penetration is or not, and whether or not you can pen it. And this is actually a very easy indicator to know. Now, in the game, they already have that function basically on the crosshair where it'll show like a red indicator or yellow indicator or green indicator when you're aiming at someone if those locations are supposed to be able to pen it. So it's already kind of doing that, so you don't really need that information. Server crosshair, right? Not really. So for me, I actually use different crosshair. I use the crosshair mods, so I don't turn any of these on, right? I don't recommend that anyone does. When you go to crosshairs, though, this is entirely up to you. You can either stick to the game. So again, if you are on low end, I would stick to the game's crosshairs. Or at least, and the other thing that you could do is also just test it. So you'll see there are all sorts of crosshairs. I actually like the Orskin blue. The blue is a good overlay, and you can see here that's that indicator I'm talking about. So that's from the game. You'll see like green if it's supposed to be a good penetration spot. What's strange here, like, and sometimes it's where the gun is. So technically he could have just moved, and this is going to take a while for the gun to get there, because that's technically where he's aiming, right? So And you can, by all means, look through all of them if you choose. It's totally up to you. Now you'll see the aim circle. You can pick your own. I actually choose Digi, right? So it's pretty simplistic, and you'll see a lot of them are. So this is just like whenever you're zoomed in, right? What kind of thing that you want. I actually just like the Digi one. So again, it's totally up to you. It's really more of a personalized choice. But I do like it if you have it. If you're going with the crosshair modifications, absolutely. I don't see a reason why not picking one. The SPG crosshair one, I do highly recommend the Aslains, right? So what this is this is the area of where your shot can hit. This is where you are specifically aiming, and this is the splash radius of your shot. So for example, if I had a friendly tank lined up like this, I know by me shooting here, I most likely will splash him even if I missed. So I wouldn't do that, right? And you'll see that they have other indications here. So this is the time it would take for the shot to get there. Some of this is like telling distance. So some of these numbers I'm actually not very good with. I think that's like how many shells you have, and this is how many or how long it takes to reload or something like that. So battle assistant, I wouldn't do that. Gun constraint though, right? So this is giving you an indicator when looking through to show you, hey, I'm actually reaching the constraints of where I can even aim before you actually have to turn, right? So it's the same thing as like a turreted, um, turreted or non-turreted tank destroyer or other vehicle. Custom damage indicator, I actually prefer this, right? I like the like this because you'll see there's different kinds. So like there's this red, right? I'm not a big fan of the red. You'll see this is just like a line, right? And I definitely don't really care for any of that. I actually just like the darker gray. You see it's saying here's this particular line. This I do recommend. By the way, this actually really helps figure out either locations to blind fire or even help tell artillery where you're being fired at from. So definitely worth having. I highly recommend it. This attack part, enemy in proximity, 100-meter warning, I definitely think is useful, but it's not really necessary. It definitely would help if you want. Having this 15-meter circle is not. I wouldn't do that. The spotted extended, that's actually nice. It helps tell, hey, yeah, someone was spotted. Um, Spotted vehicle direction on aim circle, not necessary. Direction indicator to the closest enemy. So this one is actually really useful. What you like? So what this is doing is it's saying, hey, on the map, of those who are spotted, who's the closest one to you? So you'll see here it's saying KV2, 85 meters. Now, what is not being shown here is because it's green, it means he actually does not have a direct line of sight to you. So that means you're actually kind of okay right now, but it means you might want to start paying attention to him. If this started going red, it actually means he can look at you. So he has a direct line of sight to you. So this is really useful for like scouts, right? Because that would tell you, hey, if it blinked red, you might have just got spotted. So you want to start like dodging and ducking and weaving as much as you can. So if you remember right, earlier we did already set the 6th sense 10-second duration, so we don't need to bother with that. And like I said, you do want to have the direction indicator to the closest enemy. Colored damage stickers is actually pretty cool. It helps you by being able to look at your tank and see where you were hit, right? So like for example, here's a green one. Now there's different stickers, so you see like the indications of them are a little different, but not that much different, right? So they're basically still the same stuff. But they are definitely slightly different. So let's see. I believe red is APCR. Yeah, APCR. Yellow is high explosive. Purple is heat, and then green is AP. Tank lights. You don't need that. So that's saying here, put on these headlights and stuff like that. It's just being goofy, really. Crew skill informer, I actually really enjoy this. So what this is you hit backspace in a match and it'll actually tell you all your crew like skills. So if you're ever like, I don't remember, do I have Sixth Sense? You can actually check and see. If you're like, you know what, damn, I'm really kind of slow and I'm not seeing a turn. I could have sworn I had, um, oh, that skill that increases your halt traverse. I can't seem to think of it right now. But you could actually look and see, okay, yeah, I do have it, right? Debug panels are already coming in the game, so you don't really have to bother with that. Then you have aim helping mods. This is bullshit. You shouldn't really use any of this, in my opinion, because this is just it. Yeah. So it's saying block shooting at wrecks. So what it means here is if you were aiming at a wreck and you pulled the trigger, it would be like, oh no, you can't shoot that. You can block shooting at allies. That I actually would say maybe is worth it, right? Having it where you cannot do it is a quality of life experience for most of the other players. But I will say if everyone did that, besides the people who want to be real pricks, then you can't even try to deal with the pricks in the match. And that might suck. Easier auto aim, like this is stuff like I'm not kidding. I wouldn't do any of that, to be honest. The only ones I would say are actually kind of cool is getting the block shooting at Rex or allies. I don't think shooting at Rex, because like some of this stuff gets kind of quirky. So like if your indicator or aim is close to a wreck, it might block you from firing anyway. So I would not recommend that. Let's see, tracks and engine repair. Nope. Safe shot extended, block shooting at wrecks or allies. So maybe like something like that would actually be better. So you could say, hey, I want to block shooting at wrecks and allies for 2 seconds. So that means I think it's like if you were aiming at them, you have 2 seconds before you can fire or something like that. But again, I actually don't really recommend any of that. The info panel, I don't think you need to worry about. Chat mods, so this is again the color chat, right? It's helpful. Receive damage announcer. Please don't use the already hit, right? All it says is, hey, their artillery hit me, and there's a timer on the round. One, it's kind of bullshit to call that out. It's kind of unfair. You shouldn't really be doing that. Now, given if a player knows it and is typing it, I get it. I would appreciate that effort, but the fact that we're just saying, hey, we're going to build it into this mod to call it out, I don't really appreciate that part. But I will say announcing the team damage, absolutely. So what that means is if a friendly shoots you, will say, hey, friendly, you just shot me for such and such damage. The nice part there is it lets other people know that you're being shot by your own teammate. So then if they're like, hey, what the hell just happened to our super heavy that's in front line? It turns out, well, actually, you got an E3 friendly that shot him in the back twice, doing 1,500 damage. That's where that stuff kind of comes in handy. Now, the damage logs and stuff like that, we actually took care of earlier. So you don't want to add this in because that would actually then overlap the stuff you already had. The damage panel, so this is actually changing the way that panel actually looks. So you can do which one style you like. I actually just like the what is this? Shitties? I don't know. Very weird way to just go about your name, but I do like this panel. Now, non-XVM hit log. So this is to say, hey, I keep the just win 8 efficiency and difference. So what this is telling me is currently in the match, what win 8 am I at, right? So like for damage and damage assistance, where am I sitting at? Am I orange, blue, red, all that kind of stuff. Efficiency has a bunch of other things that are also included. I forget exactly what's all in there. But it's the same thing. So it's going to say, hey, what am I currently at efficiency? The difference, right, is actually going to say how much damage do you need to get to average on the tank, right? So this part I kind of like, kind of lets me know, hey, if I'm trying to keep my win 8 up, what exactly am I aiming for? Team HP, absolutely, right? absolutely 100% agree with this because what it's doing is take all the HP and show it, right? So now you're measuring by HP. It's really good to know because like if you're like, man, we're down to, we only have 4 tanks and all of them only do like 150, 200 damage, but it turns out your opponent has 8,000 hit points left on the field. You're just like, yeah, that's going to be a really hard fight. Chances are you're not going to win. So I stick to the normal. You can do like by league, whatever. It's totally up to you. But I do like the normal. I turned all of these off, right? Show armor penetrate, armor indicated. Yeah, you don't. That's not right. You shouldn't have that. Show live players. I actually keep this one, right? Damage meters. So these are all the things that we already turned on. So if I had these on, it would actually overlap. Player panel. Yeah, see, same thing. So these all overlap. So I would turn off most of this except for the show a live player count. So what that is instead of me seeing, hey, it's 15 versus 15, 14 versus 15, 13 versus 15, 12 versus 15, I actually just see, or I'm sorry, it is that rather than it being the kill counts. So I'm not looking at it as like, oh, well, it's 0 versus 0, then 1 versus 2, right? And then 5 versus 3, right? Whichever that comes out to in the battle. Gold ammo invisibility mod. I actually highly recommend this. This is actually kind of cool. So you'll see here it gives like a little poof of paint kind of looking. I've tried a couple of these. I don't recommend red. Red doesn't really come up very easily. Blue is easy to see. I believe purple would be really easy to see. So it's totally up to you, but I definitely recommend it. So what that means is if someone's shooting gold, in the game, when you get hit by it, it'll tell you did they fire a normal round or APCR or anything like that. What this will do is even if they hit the dirt, you'll know that they were firing gold at you. That helps indicate or let you know should you maybe back off a bit, or at least just be a little more careful. It doesn't really change the fact that you were in line of fire and you probably knew that already. It just gives you a little more information of trying to make some decisions if necessary. Let's see, requesting fire marker arrow. Oh, that's kind of cool. I didn't know they actually had that. Not necessarily really needed. There's already the in-game marker, so that's saying if you wanted to do an arrow, if you want to do an aim circle, totally up to you, right? But I would not use that. The consumable panel, it's like this. Right, so it's saying is like if they're reloading or loading back up, how do you want that color to be? You can do yellow like this. That's what this is. It's yellow. I actually chose blue. You don't need to have that. So if you're on a lower machine, you don't have to bother. A lot of this stuff you don't really need, but I do highly recommend a couple of these if you have the machine for it. Right. So one, final shot. It tells you where the last 3 hits were on your tank. So this is very helpful in the case you're like, damn, I could have sworn I had myself entirely covered. How did this guy get me? And then it turns out it's like, you know what? Actually went right through that very tippy corner there, and you got it. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm glad to know that. It's a fair thing. So like, this helps answer some of the questions of like, what was it exactly that actually hit you or got you? Because a lot of cases you're like, there was no way did they do that, and actually it was like, yeah, no, they really could. The other thing I really like is the real-time in-battle achievements. So what this is saying is like if you got Top Gun, it would actually pop up and say, yo, you just got Top Gun. If you earn Radley Walters, it would show up and tell you. So like absolutely, I love it. I really enjoy it. I highly recommend it. Graphical performance mods. So this is, again, if you are on a lower end machine, you can actually tell it, hey, look, I just want to limit my FPS to 60, try to keep the consistency. That actually does help. You can take away the fog, max far plane. These are things just to try to help you, right? So if your machine is weaker, that's when you want to start turning these things on. A lot of stuff, though, honestly, when we talk about like these, wreckage spokes, things like that, you actually can just turn those off in the graphics settings of the game. So you're most likely already on those lower settings, so you probably don't have to bother with a lot of that, okay? Garage mods, this is really, again, cosmetic, so entirely up to you what you want to do with it. You'll see you have garage icons. So like, for example, I do the tank icons. You see the tech tree, and there's the different icons that you can see in the tech tree. You can do class for like HDR, right? So that's high def, Roman tier, all these things. It gets kind of crazy. I personally just like the which one was that? I think it was version 2. Yeah, I like the version 2. Then you have tank carousel. So for me, I actually really enjoy having the premium tanks colored by gold. Um, Premium tanks colored by gold in HDR, right? Is what I'm gonna go with. And like you'll see here, this is saying, hey, if you wanted HDR with their coloring and stuff like that, you can show camouflage colored icons with gold premium tanks. And I'm actually just gonna stick to this guy right here. Crew icons. So this one's actually kind of like, again, this is just if you are trying to have like some fun, you can do a minion crew, right? You can do full female crew. I actually personally like this anime one, Anime Tank Crew 1, right? But you can see like you can do pink female crew, so you know when they're females right up. They got Girl Panzer that's from another show. And then this one actually gets into like nation flags and stuff like that. It's kind of cool. But you'll see here you could do like just, hey, modified women, or make everyone basically women, whatever you choose, right? I actually will be using this one. And then you have battle results. Now battle results, you have all sorts of different kind of things. So like you see, you could do like, hey, that one, it's this one, right? There's a sexy one, right? So a lot of men tend to do that one. But I actually like the anime ones, right? So I like the one that's, kind of more of the hardcore anime, where it's she's probably a badass kind of thing, right? Your tech tree, you can modify that if you choose. It's really just a lot of, it gets kind of crazy when you do this, right? Because it just realigns the tech tree entirely. Selected tank highlighter, all right? This is just to help you indicate which tank you have currently selected. I don't mind that actually myself. And then you'll see here they're saying, hey, you can even change the color of the experience, right? Not necessary, but it's there. Crew experience. So this one, Wargaming mods, right? Oops. There you go. So you'll see in here, this is basically saying you go in here and it'll kind of tell you all that stuff, but you can also do the crew experience by spotter. And what it's going to do is it's actually going to tell you how many fights are you looking at, right, trying to get to the next. And it's what it should say here. Mod has a menu and hanger under escape. This mod displays how many battles and experience will need your crew to achieve the next percentage, and 100% in actual skill perk. So I think this is actually just the experience, right? So that's how much experience it would take for them to go to the next, I believe. Yeah, because otherwise that looks kind of crazy. 800 battles, that seems really rough. Vehicle HP extended. So you'll see here it's talking about if you're looking for particulars. I actually do the red colored personal missions, right? So it's easier to see. Battle hit viewer. I highly recommend this. So what this is there's going to be a select like a option or location that you could open up, and it will like you can tell it like, hey, I'm looking at this battle. You can actually tell it I want to see where I hit people, or where people hit you, right? I highly recommend this. It is not going to change your gameplay in the game, in the match that you're in, but it will help you learn some things about your tank, because it'll let you know what tanks are hitting you and penning you, and which ones are and where they're doing it, right? So it's very helpful. Honestly, it's no different than basically going through and watching in a replay. It's just a much easier way to do that. I don't see any problem for that. Let's see, hanger armor inspector. So I actually ran into a lot of, I tried doing these before and it didn't really work very well. So I don't recommend any of those. And you don't have to do the carousels because you already did all of that, right? And the same thing with equipment. Session statistics I do really enjoy, right? Now, you see you can kind of do core, you can do, hey, there's multilingual. I actually really like the core. And then you can choose like different backgrounds, right? Personally, I'm good with just the version 1, right? And you'll see it. And so what this is doing is it's saying by your session for the day, so it's every 24 hours. And it'll tell you like how much silver did you bring in? How much silver did it cost you? right? So like how much was it to repair your tanks and all that kind of stuff. And it'll tell you net income that you brought in for the day. It'll also tell you your overall session statistics. So like 49 victories out of 82 fights gave you 59.8% victory rate. It also told him the average tier was 7.6, right? I'm not sure what the 8.7 part is, right? But kind of strange to me, but that's what he's got it. EXP earned, right? So you're looking at all those EXPs showing an average of 827. And this is saying overall EXP. So this is saying what you got with just like times ones. This is overall with including your times twos to say, hey, he was averaging 1,775 on a times two. But then you got 8,710 free experience. And the other part that's kind of nice too is you'll see here it's like kills, right? So kills, deaths, hit shots, penetrations, damage dealt, damage received. So it's showing you all those averages and spotted. And then it'll tell you, hey, here's your efficiency based on all of this, right? Here's the win 8 based on the damage. Where's the damage guy? Damage, right? And then actually it's not showing the assistance. Yeah, so it doesn't show the assistance, but actually this part includes assistance as well. So I actually recommend it. I like it. It's really nice, very helpful. You'll see here I reset the stats daily at 6. I do recommend it as well. And then I enable the special add-ons beta, like win 8 on battle results window. Yeah. And then you can see you can do like different ones here. So like it's saying, hey, instead of those, I want to use like these guys. So it's whatever you choose. But like I said, I use the core background one. Sound mods. So voice announcer is actually really cool. It's very helpful. So what'll happen there is it'll have a voice that will announce like, hey, you got 5 minutes left on the match. Or if you pull off some kind of really cool kill, such as like kamikaze, it'll have some kind of feature for that too. You can change the sounds of your guns and things like that. A lot of this does not really impact performance of the game because all it is saying, hey, the sounds that were there, where they were pointing, they're going to point somewhere new. So once these are set, every match you go into, it'll already be there, and that shouldn't be a very heavy impact. I actually like keeping the voices from the game that allows it to swap between each nation, but this is allowing you the option of saying, hey, I just specifically want it to always be a particular one. That's totally up to you. Texture models, I do not recommend, period. Right? If you are really hard up and you're like, I just really want to have a different model, totally up to you. You can do it. But you just got to bear in mind, by changing the model, it means it changes the model not only for your tank, but the opponent tank that you see, and that model will not match to the actual hitbox model. So that means you can be bouncing on your opponent all the time just because you didn't know, hey, that wasn't really there, right? So just bear that in mind. That's why I really definitely don't recommend it. And then minimap mods. Like this is say like, hey, you can go into like high definition minimaps and changing that. I don't really believe you need any of that. Again, that's totally up to you. And then you have various mods, same thing. Like this is all extra kind of stuff. You just don't really have to worry about it. And here you'll see this is the Aslains mod pack markings. So this is actually saying, hey, mod pack version, giving you the mod pack button and a loading wheel. I'm totally fine with it, but again, if you want to turn those off, you totally can. So that actually reaches the end of all the configurations, right? Now, given I went through all of it, right? But the key things to note is like, right, so if you were doing, if you have a low-end computer, right, you did not really need to install a lot. There's only like maybe 5 or 6 key features that you're really even looking for. For those that had the options or a computer and you're like, man, I just really don't know what's really what or what really works well, that's why I'm kind of doing this video, is to show that. So once you have reached that point, and you'll see it tells you even how much disk space it's even going to require. Now the disk space is not really a lot typically, so it shouldn't be that much of a concern. It was more of what would happen when you have it in the game. So at that point, you're going to say next. And then you'll see it gives you installation options, right? So you can say, hey, if I want to delete all the files downloaded by the installer, back up your session stats cache, Honestly, I just stick to the settings you see here, right? So create application shortcut. That actually creates this logs archiver. Um, and then you have delete Python logs, delete all previous mods from the game, right? That is actually strongly advised. You definitely want to do that, right? So here we go. We're going to say next. Now we're finally ready to install. And you'll see the install, like for me, with my computer, I do have solid state drives, and I also have some higher performance drives. So the install doesn't really take that long. Now, one thing I want to note here is I actually have the World of Tanks, like, splash screen, or, I guess dashboard or whatever. It's here. This does not block the install of the actual game. This is actually separate from the actual game installation. And now here's where we get into some stuff. So for those that were going to do XVM, you'll see here we have activate XVM services. You can join this Discord. You can donate. Obviously, if you get into this stuff and it's very helpful, I do highly recommend that you donate at least something, because it is very helpful stuff. And you'll see here it automatically brings you to the website for XVM. Now, here's the stuff that they're talking about where you can say update statistics, activate statistics, that you'd probably have to go into like settings and try to deactivate your statistics. So what I do recommend is first, if this is the first time you're going to activate the statistics, you do want to come back to the site every once in a while to update the statistics, because that will actually update it to the game, or I'm sorry, up to your mod, so that way in the game you'll see those stats. Now again, if you did not turn that on, you don't need to bother with that, right? So bear that in mind. So like if you weren't using that, so if the low-end PCs and stuff like that, because this stuff definitely pulls in extra information, and it does take some effect to the game. So what all did we do? What all actually happened? So I'm going to try to jump here into the game here. I'm going to turn down some of my volume. Hopefully you won't hear, it won't be very loud, hopefully, but we'll see how that goes. So again, this was more to show you the mod pack, how to get the installation, what would be good configurations for that installation, because there is a lot of settings, and I know that it definitely scares a lot of people. When you're like, man, this program's ridiculous. It's got all this stuff. I have no idea what it is, no idea what it's doing, whether it's even useful. So I wanted to, kind of go through and help everyone with stuff for it, because there's a lot of stuff that people are like, oh yeah, by using it, you're totally cheating. And it's like, no, it's really, a lot of it is quality of life. That's it. It's just stuff to make the game a little more nice, right? It's not to say, hey, oh man, I know exactly where to pen you. I want to pen you all the time. I don't even have to aim at you because I got a mod pack that does that. That does not exist. Oh, I shouldn't say that. I'm sure there are mod packs that do, but that's not what this pack is for. That's not what people are using it for. So I'm hoping it kind of takes away the smoke and curtains and shows, hey, overall, that's not what's really happening. So you'll notice it did take some time to load in, right? So first time load-ins will take some time, right? Because it's going to try to adjust everything. But from the first time, that's not to say, hey, every time that's how it's going to be. So right out the door, you'll see, hey, looks like World of Tanks, guys, right? Pretty normal, right? Nothing too crazy. There's my tank, right? You'll notice here's that highlight, right? So I got a bright blue highlighter, so I know exactly which tank I'm on. Now you'll notice I clicked on a tank and it took a little while, right? Because it grabbed the crew, it pulled the crew over. And you'll notice they're all anime chicks, right? That was one of the mods I picked. So I'm gonna go back to this one, and you'll see there it's saying, hey, like 694 experience is what I need to earn, if I'm reading that right. I might be reading that wrong, to be honest, but unless it's actually saying that, it might be that. It might be, hey, you need 821,000. Actually, you know what? Let's look at the personal file. We'll find out right here, right? Total experience 700,000, 753,000 to reset main skill. Oh, you'd lose some. Okay. Experience required to increase skill 1,144. In this one, I'm showing 694. So it's saying battles left approximately 1 of 694 experience. I think that's okay. I think what they're saying is that's the base experience, and because I have a premium account, it's going to bring that up. So there you go. So that's 694 experience. I know I average more than that typically, so I know, hey, I need one fight and I'll get a percent. That'll get me up to 26 on some of them and 27 on one of them. So, what else did it do, right? Well, you got the tech tree, right? So that's, you'll see, hey, oh, I got green, I got red, I got purple, right? Blue, right? And it makes it a little easier to know which parts the mediums, which parts the heavies, especially with this crap, right? Because now they got it all sorts of crazy. But that's really the gist. So they have the locks, so you can turn on the locks and say, hey, I don't want you to actually allow me to do purchases or even look at my conversion like options. And then here's the other part too. So we have the stats. Oh, looks like I might have changed this part. Well, actually it might require that I do a fight before it happens, right? So you'll see here, this is like the announcement. It's telling me here's the overall session details, right? I can even say, hey, I want to look at the particular tank, and then you see, are you sure you want to reset, right? I can even reset if I want. Now, one of the things I mentioned was there are like extra mod parts. So this is the modded configurator or my battle hits, right? So I can go into battle hits. It would just go through and it loads. In this case, it's gonna say, hey, dude, you just got in the game. You don't have any battle hits, bro. So you see me and enemies. So there you go. So what does it look like? What does it come out to in the game, right? So here we go. I'm going to go ahead and just drop in a game. This is going to show you, like, now bear in mind, I do have a solid state drive. I do have an i7 core processor and stuff like that. So you'll see here it is. It's telling me, hey, I got a lot of English, so it's at least American. That's good, right? Because I'm like, hey, I'm on an American server. I'm looking for English, right? So that's where you see the English flag. That just means that they speak English, right? And that counts for American. So you'll see, hey, at the very top there, I got the overall health. I already see that just by the matchup, my team has 490 extra health. The indicator here is telling me what it would take based on this health for me to earn high caliber, which is 30% of the hit points of the enemy team. So you'll see, hey, here's the minimap. Everything's kind of stacked up, right? Here's those rings. There's the turquoise, looking pretty good. I got my overall in the corner here, you know, what I'm doing and how good I'm doing for all the different stuff. Probably shouldn't pay attention to what I'm about to get into, right? So there you heard it, right? So there was the up, right? So loaded, it's up, good to go. You'll see here's my aim, right? It started me at 6. I can scroll out. It started me at 6. See? Sorry, there's the times 6 at the top there. And now again, I can tab, and then there's all the extra details, right? So I can say, hey, okay, I got 41%, 44, 47, so not too bad, right? But the enemy team, not so good, right? They have some people that are so low, I think they might be a bot. Hey, there's the minions. So see, these are all the little mods that are coming through. Nothing here is like, oh man, look, oh, he's got minions, he's gonna win. He's totally cheating. Like, no, it's just minions, bro. With a nice little Dido thing. Oh, and I missed. So we know I'm spotted. There's that hit indicator. So yeah, I got hit. Someone shot me, obviously. All right, here we go. Let's see if I can get. Well, actually, I probably want to be careful, right? Because that's where the tank destroyers and stuff like to go. You'll see I have spotted some people. Mod one that wants to come shoot me. That's okay. Now you also see here it's telling me how close people are, and that's okay. I'm good with that. And let's get a track. Track, sucker. And you'll see over here in the chat, right? It's telling me, hey, someone's requesting fire. Pretty adamant about it. This guy apparently doesn't know how to angle properly. You'll see there the floating text, right? So that's the floating text that I set up, and it actually said, hey, he did 263, there's 231. You'll see it's kind of like a slow float, which is cool. But the other... Okay, you want to track me now, huh? Track me now, sucker. Interesting. That's alright. Oh! That part's not alright. He's supposed to be coming over and shooting me like that. Alright. So, you'll see here, this is typical, right? This is normal play, guys. Like, nothing here is me cheating. Nothing here is saying, oh, man, look, I'm totally, you know, it's auto-aiming for me. Like I said, most of those things you shouldn't be doing anyway. You shouldn't have that. Those are options that you never should be turning on. And you'll see, hey, the 100, it's telling me, oh, man, you got people really close. and I'm going to be spotting people and all that kind of stuff. That's true. I want to spot people. But, ooh, Lerva, you're so mean. Ooh, that's not good. This is really not good. So you see, I just took a bunch. But look, I got steel walls. Oh, I'm dead. So, there you go. Right? That's the mod pack. So here we are. So, you know, hey, for the overall fight, it's telling me, hey, I got all of those. Now here, all of those hit indicators. Let me show you that. So this is what it's telling me. It's saying, hey, T-54 mod 1, he actually shot me coming, like, because I was actually at a bad angle. You can see I got lifted up, and that let him shoot right into the top of the plate. Artillery, on the other hand, actually nailed me, hit me right on, right? So that's why I took a good chunk of health and damage just from artillery. Then, the Lerva, when I came around, he actually nailed me right onto the top plate, and actually, based on me coming around like that, that was actually a bad move. That allowed him to hit pretty hard. And you'll see here in the logs, right? So this is the logs, and most of it you already have in the game. It's not a big deal. So you'll see, hey, I got 245. I bounced a lot, blocked a lot. 359, 443, 253. And then you'll see I can look at the team, and if I go over to the team, it'll extend, right? So I can see all of it. And this is where the defaults are, right? So it's like, hey, you could have that, and I chose this one. I could have been like, hey, I want the real short. What I want, like the name, right? Now, on the right side here, you'll see the indicator. So it's saying, hey, this guy is actually lit. He's spotted right now. Oh, now he just fell off, right? So this guy's lit, this guy's lit, that guy's lit, that guy's lit. This guy has not been seen. Not been seen. Not been seen. And then this is saying that they have been seen, but are currently not lit, right? So that means they're somewhere here. And then you'll see all the health stuff, right? This is the stuff I was talking about. So having these indicators, like, okay, hey, this guy's doing pretty good. This guy, he just took a hit, but he's doing pretty good, right? The enemy, like E4, is pretty weak, right? They're 430, pretty weak. AMX30 is half. Scorpion G is pretty weak. So you'll see, even though we're down 7 to 9, right? So we only have 7 players left. They have 9. I just called out like 4 of them that are pretty weak, which means if we can get the kills, it'll balance out, and you'll see, hey, that we had 2,000 something hit points ahead of them right now. And it'll even it still takes who's alive too, by the way, for this win chance. So it's saying right now I have 49% win chance based on their ratings, right? Not necessarily the health. Now one dropped, so one died. You see it just changed. It went to 54. Now, for my overall rating, right, you'll see it says, hey, I got 767 in this fight. Notice I only did 967. No one helped me. I needed one more shot, right, to get to the average. So not the best match for me, but it still works. Now, other than that, right, same stuff. You can go back to the garage, and then if I go back to the garage, we're going to go here. And then here is some of the interesting stuff, right? So you'll see it took a little while, and that's because it's checking, like, hey, did I have any new modules that came through, or any things that came through that I need to take certain equipment off, such as like binocs, right? And other things, I'm sure. I just can't think of all of them offhand right now. But, so now that I had a fight, I can go to the battle hits, and you'll see here, it's saying, hey, look, man, I took damage into my lower. Oh, actually that's, sorry, let me stick to just me. So it's saying, hey, this guy damaged me, right? That was the one where I was badly angled, so that's where you can see it just went right through the top plate, right? Here's where a dude tried to shoot me. He actually aimed at my turret ring, and it didn't go very well. I'm surprised at that, actually. But did not pierce, right? And this one, he actually critted me. Like, look at that. I mean, how wonderful is that? He went right into the driver hatch. That guy is definitely happy. So here's a case. Guy's aiming at my lower glacis, couldn't pen. The Lerva, like I said, he went right through. You can see he actually went right through the weld. Good job. Right, but then here's E4, bounced off that plate, right? That's actually a lot of armor there, so that was not a good shot at all. T-54 Mod 1 was actually able to pen me through like this. So apparently where I was angled, I was like that. Right? This one, he critted me, so that's where he shot, and he tracked me. He actually never actually hit me with that one. This one he didn't pierce, and this one he didn't pierce. And then you see, like, there's a bunch of them. Like, he just kept putting it right in my plate. So, not very good overall for the enemy team. that's kind of like awareness of where. So this is saying, hey, for me, I nailed the E4, or I'm sorry, the Mod 1 into the lower, right through the track, right into the side of his hull. This one I hit, but did not damage, right? Which makes sense because, hey, I was aiming for here because those cheeks are actually weak. And you'll see that the spaced armor, yeah, I don't have any, I don't believe at all that I would actually go through the spaced armor. So I was actually aiming for here, but sadly I hit the spaced armor, and you'll see I just barely hit it. Like I was actually close to getting to where I wanted, but that happens. So you see here, that's the side, that's the side, that's the crit, and this one, same thing. I hit. That's sad too, because like, yeah, if I would have hit anywhere in here, so if this shot would have went a little bit higher, I would have had all that. So that's where this thing comes in kind of handy. You'll see it's not like, oh man, look, it's totally telling you this was by this millimeter, and blah, blah, blah. It just tells you, where did you get hit, did it do you any good, that kind of stuff. Now, the other thing too is, like I mentioned, from the mod, is you'll see here it's showing what is my win rate in the tank, how many battles have I fought, what is my average damage, or I'm sorry, what is my average win rate for it, and then what's the expected for the tank, right? And then you'll see here, this is mark of excellence. So this one says 77.93%, which means I already passed my first mark, right? And you'll see here, down here, this is the in-game stuff. So it's saying I got the mastery badge, 52% win rate. So you see there, 52% win rate, 52%. And you'll see, hey, I got that mastery badge 1 indicator, or I'm sorry, mark of excellence 1. So that was 65%. So I have 77.93. So yeah, I did it. And then there's those, times 2 indicators to like show you. And you'll see here, you still have everything else, like the same normal details and stuff like that. What is interesting to me is it's supposed to show me kind of like session results here. So I might have discluded something, but it might be because it's still waiting for that one match to finish before it can even show. So alrighty, so it turns out I actually forgot a couple settings. I'm going to go ahead and point those out now. One of them was with the, let's see, bear with me, I gotta try to, okay, so one of them was this part right here. So the bulbs, this is like whatever you choose it to be. The default from XVM is this style. The one I actually really like is this bulb 3, right? So it shows green if they are lit, and it shows white if they're not, and then I forget what the orange one is on that one. Yeah, I actually don't remember that part offhand. So that was one small part there. Then we had, where is it? So a lot of this was actually really good. It was just small things that I really liked that I was missing. And we're getting closer. So in the garage portion, other XVM. And I think it was, I think we already set that one up. Let's see, there's hey, you can see they make this really easy to find everything, right? The next part was, we're getting close again. Okay, so one of them I was missing is I wanted to I think it was this part. So one of them is like you'll see here on this image here, you get green and red. There's another one that actually sets it up to where it will show like the it'll actually have color indications for this. So like heavies would be reds, mediums are like yellow, stuff like that. And I forget which one actually has that. So that's the part I want to figure out. So you'll see like you can do different types or styles in here. I actually like the Battle Observer one. I don't need the show clock. I don't need their debug. So like a lot of these things, it's from that part. So there's stuff already in the game. Rather than having to turn off the in-game, I actually keep these parts off. There we go. Color the icon class. So this is the one I'm showing. So like blue is TDs, purple is SPG, yellow is medium. That one I actually really like. And then there's the other one. That was the part I said we had already set. So it's to show alive players. You don't need all of these because we already put those on. And then same thing with players panels. You don't need that either. Then still have another thing I was missing too. Right. So here we go. Garage. That's right. So it's the session statistics and stuff like that. So when I get to we are getting really close now. Where is it at? Where you at? Here we go. Session statistics. So before I mentioned you do the core multilingual. That's the one I really enjoy, and then you can set whatever background. I actually am playing around with some of the backgrounds, but again, you can choose whatever you want. The part that I forgot to say was to enable special add-ons, beta, multilingual. When you look at this, it doesn't really help kind of explain what it's going to be and like why, because it's kind of extra. It's a couple things all in one. So what you'll see in here is you'll see that it's saying items yet to be researched, and it'll tell you how much experience before you got to that. That way you don't have to go click research to say, oh, well, did I need the radio? How far am I from getting the gun? And then the other part here was actually having it on this side where you'll have the statistics showing, saying what's your net income, average tier, things like that. Now, if you don't want the overall session tracker, such as this guy, right? You actually technically have to have this on, but so having these backgrounds and stuff like that, these are all pulled up from a button in the bottom, and that's actually how you will see these. So these will already be there. You can click on it to pull that up. When you have the special add-ons, it will actually show up on any tank that you're currently looking at, and I'll show what that looks like. And then you still want to do the resets. The other part too was I did graphical, and actually there was one more, and I think I actually passed it up. It was a chat mod, if I remember right. Yeah. So I've seen this. I mean, it's hard to see these things sometimes. So we are looking for chat modifications. So this was garage. You were graphical. And by the way, so what I'm looking at is there's these kind of key groupings here. So this is graphical modifications, non-XVM, damage, chat. Alright, so in chat there is show results from previous battle. You don't have to have this. I actually do keep it. It can be a little distracting if you're doing a lot of clan stuff, but I still feel it's worth it. And alright, so that turns everything. Okay, so those were the key functionalities that I had missed. And the key thing that I was trying to do yesterday when recording this was I wanted to show what the session statistics looks like. It's sadly, because I had just done the installation and everything like that, I didn't actually have any session statistics. So first I wanted to, because I found out, hey, I was missing a couple settings, so I wanted to get that in here, and then I'm going to actually show you the... Alrighty, here we go. So I got some matches in. I went ahead and made sure to have this stuff there so you can actually see the parts that I'm talking about here. So the add-on portion that I mentioned for the session statistics that got thrown in there, so you'll see here it's giving me just overall, right? It's saying, hey, look, I have a net income of 118,000. It says I have 6 wins out of 8 battles, making me a 75% win rate. And then it even shows me the efficiency win rate of my overall session so far. The other part there is you'll see this total. So this is just saying on the account, it says I've actually increased so far by 4 points. And then this part is saying I increased my efficiency by 0.8, but it looks like my win rate is still about the same. So I know like win rate after you reach so many battles, right? It's kind of harder to get to, or get it increased to. Now the parts here that you'll see, it says items ready to be researched. It says I have the tank, I have the engine and the tank that I'm working towards. So these are just saying, if I were to go in the research tree, those are 2 things that I could put experience into. Now the other part that it's saying here is that I am 76,870 experience away from getting the tank. So the part here is if I were to go into research, so you'll see there's that engine. So it's saying, yep, I could research that. I already have enough to unlock it, so it won't show in the other one, because that's like progression too. So the part that I don't have enough is the tank itself, and that's like you see it's 220,000, saying here I had 143,000, so it means I'm 70,000 away. So that said, that means it does not take in your free experience, right? Accumulation, so it's just telling me if I were to grind, how much do I need to grind. Now, this is like the generalized statistics, right? And you can see I can even do statistics by tank. And what that's doing is for this session, it's telling you which tanks I've ran and then how I performed for it. So it says like, hey, I did really well in the Maushan, the T10, I'm dark green. Actually, most of these look like they're just in the green. And then I had a bad match in my E4. Then, which I personally like this part. This is the really cool part. And then it's kind of nice having this as well. But the other part that I'm talking about, this is the session details for all together. So that's, you'll notice it's kind of matching up, right? So here's the 6 out of 8. So this is why I was saying technically you don't need this. You don't have to add the add-on, right? I just like it because it's like a quick reference, because otherwise you got to click the notification, you got to pull this up. And then the other part that like would show up is this part, right? So it's saying, hey, this battle was a victory, earn that much experience, earn this much silver. Now this silver right here, that is actually saying the amount of silver that was earned altogether, whereas this is what I actually profited, right? So it takes in the repairs, the ammunition, and it'll tell me like, hey, for that battle, what was my win 8, and then mark of excellence, how much progression I made towards that, and then the CMD, that is taking your damage done and your damage assistance and putting those together. So all together, damage done and damage assistance, I did 2,580 for that fight. And you'll see that's just basically the same thing on here. Let's see if I can find one where I was defeated. Yeah, so then you'll see like they have the defeated. So this is one of the options that I picked where I was saying, hey, I actually want like the small little images in here. You don't have to. You can choose to not have those images. It's entirely up to you. So that's everything. Again, I hope you guys really enjoy this. Let me know if this is helpful information, if you want to see more information, or other videos, whatever kind of ideas you have for World of Tanks. If you're having struggles with particular tanks, just shoot me a message. Like, subscribe. I'm trying to do these videos. It's hard to tell if people want me to keep doing them or not. And it's hard to have the motivation to do them if no one is really saying anything or liking and subscribe. For those that have, I do appreciate it, and that's why I continue to do this stuff. So thank you so much for your time, and I hope to catch you guys around.